I always break this question down into four things. If you're going to reduce your taxes, which is really why we're trying to set up businesses, is legal protection and tax reduction. If we're going to do that, there's really four steps in my mind. Step number one, you have to have a business. You have to, of something. We have to select the proper entity. We need to select the proper taxation for that entity. And then we need to have the right IRS approved language somewhere in our corporate documents. That's the foundation for reducing taxes. Because they've taken away so many of your personal deductions, really, if you're going to reduce your taxes, you really have to have a business. And I don't really care what the business is. It could be dog walking. It could be, this manages all of my investments. Maybe it's my credit, maybe it's my Christmas card mailing business. Maybe, I don't know. But you have to have it, and the presumption is you have the intent to make a profit. Therefore, you have a business. It may not be a structured business like a corporation. You might not have shareholders and board of directors, and it might be a very simple way to do it. But your number one key to reducing your personal taxes is to have a business of some kind, because there's so many things that now I can write off that I couldn't write off before. Okay, so that's number one. Number two is I need to now select the proper business structure. Now, this is very different than taxation. Taxation will that'll be number three. But number two is I need to find the right legal entity, and here's your options. I can be a sole proprietorship. I could structure, which means I'll get to that in a second. I could be a general partner, a limited partner, an LLC, which is known as a limited liability company. I could be a formal corporation, or for some people, a professional corporation. If you have a license to do whatever you're doing, that could be a professional LLC, but you're labeled as a professional, which limits your corporate veil protection. If you're an engineer and you mess up the bridge that people drive over every day, there's no liability protection for you personally. You're held to a higher standard. If a dentist drills the wrong tooth, and there's no liability protection for him for that type of, he's held to a higher standard, as you would expect professionals to be. But forgetting professional corporation, because most people aren't that. So how do I select the proper business legal entity? Well, I'm going to give you some ideas here. And let's kind of look at each one of them individually. Let's look at a sole proprietorship. The sole proprietorship is easy to form. In fact, I really don't have to do anything other than I call it a business. I've got the intent to make a profit. I could, all of the taxable events, there's no formal filings with any state agency. I don't have to file with the Secretary of State, Division of Corporations. There's no, I set up the business and I get started. I could have a personal bank account or a business account. It's always better to have a business account, but even if I don't, I just have the intent to make a profit. I'm running everything out of my personal account. Here's the problems. Yes, it's simple to form. Yes, there's no state filing fees. Yes, but there's also no liability protection. You are the business. If there's a lawsuit, it's really you. There's no corporate veil. There's no charging order protection. You are the business, and you assume all the liability. But sometimes that might be appropriate. We get people that call. Okay, we get a lot of women that goes, my husband has so many ideas. And it could be either one, I don't care. But if you got somebody that has lots of ideas, and let's try this. Maybe this business, maybe I'm starting a new MLM business. I don't know if it's going to get off the ground or not. Could I run it first as a sole proprietorship? Let's test this idea out. Let's see if it works. As long as there's no employees, as long as there's very limited liability exposure, A lot of home businesses will start as sole proprietorships. Children's businesses will start as sole proprietorships. So I like a sole proprietorship maybe for business ideas until we get it off the ground. Home-based businesses, again, but there's no liability protection. It also has very limited tax deductions, but we'll get to that because we're not talking taxes right now. We're only talking the business entity. So what about a general partnership? A general partnership is also easy to form. There's no really state filing requirements. There's no separate tax returns. What it is, it's a handshake deal. Me and a buddy are going into business together, but as a result of that, you now assume all the liability, not just for what you do, but for what the partner does. There's what's called joint and several liability, meaning anything that he does in the course, because he's also an agent for the business. And if he goes out and gets a $500,000 line of credit and he tells the banker that this is for your business, you may not be aware of it, but now you have liability. See, the problem with that is that you are joint and several liable for all the actions, not only of yourself, but for your partners that you might have in this business. So general partner, if sole proprietorships scare me, you got to know that general partnerships scare me even worse. When would a general partnership be appropriate? And I was thinking about this for a long time last night, and I cannot think of, in 22 years of teaching asset protection, I can't think of ever a time when I recommended somebody to be a general partner. I just don't do that. The only time I could possibly think that it might be a potential might be your kid's lemonade business. Honestly, I would never join. For adults that are serious about making money, I would never recommend a general partnership. And yet, hundreds of times people have called in and, well, here's what we have, and oh my gosh, you don't have anything. We meant to set up a limited partnership or corporation. We just never got around to it. And then we have employees and we're running businesses. Oh my gosh, you have a general partnership, whether you know it or not. So I really like you to stay clear of that. A corporation is the traditional way that business has been run in America. It requires formal documents with the state. You're filing with the Secretary of State, your Division of Corporations, whatever, but you're saying, because I'm setting this up, now I have corporate veil protection, which means if something happens in the business, they can't come after the officers, directors, shareholders personally. That's good. But there are corporate formalities. There's an annual shareholders meeting. There's an annual board of directors meetings. Every time you make a major decision in the company, it should be accompanied by a piece of paper called a resolution. Or maybe you have a weekly or a monthly meeting and you keep minutes at these. The corporations require formalities for you to be able to keep the corporate veil. But a corporation also has rights as a person. A corporation can sue somebody else or another corporation. It can be sued. A corporation, the officers could walk into court and defend the corporation. It has rights as it were a person. It could also have perpetual existence where, us as individuals, we can't. And there's more tax deductions available to a corporation than any other business structure. Okay. And then limited partnerships are very different. This is the traditional way not to run a business, but to own assets. Keep this in mind. Limited partnerships have been around since 1916. This is the traditional way we own assets because it has charging order protection, which means I cannot take your interest away. Whoever are the limited partners have limited liability, which means I can't sue the limited partnership for the actions that the partnership caused. The general partner, yes, but not the limited partners. Because they're not actively involved in the business, all the income, therefore, comes to them as passive, which means it's not subject to self-employment taxes. All the tax benefits, the pass-through benefits of like owning real estate, real estate losses, depreciation, all of those things could pass through to me. That's good passively, which means, again, it's not active income. There's ease of operation, which means I don't have a lot of the corporate formalities I would in a corporation. Okay, that's good. So I don't have to do the minutes and meetings and resolutions and stock certificates and stock ledgers and corporate seals and all of the other stuff that intimidate most small businesses anyway. And I've got the ability, maybe with a limited partnership, to spread income to lower tax brackets. Maybe I bring in my kids as limited partners. I don't give them any liability, I don't give them any say, but I'm spreading the income that comes out of my high tax bracket to my kids. So that's an option. And then last of all is there's what's called a limited liability company. This is pulling the best out of the corporation, the best out of the limited partnership. It's the new kid on the block as far as legal structures, because it combines the major benefits of a corporation with the limited partnership. See, it's taking ease of operation, it's taking charging order protection from the limited partnership side, it's bringing all the tax benefits and the corporate veil from the corporation side. It gives me great tax flexibility. But now how we structure this will determine whether it's going to own assets or whether it's going to operate a business, because now with an LLC it could do both. All right, so select the last. So here's what I want to do is I want to summarize in this one slide and make it so clear that you can't possibly misunderstand. But I want you to separate, if you're looking what business structure, I want you to separate in your mind, is this really, is the purpose of this business to operate a business, or is it to own and protect assets? If it's to operate a business, you got three options. You can be a sole proprietorship, you be a corporation, or you could be an LLC. Those are your options, right there on that pretty little picture. But that's different than I want to own and protect assets. For that, I really want something with charging order protection. I want something that they can't take away from me in a lawsuit. Your options really are a limited partnership or a multi-member LLC. Or you might sometimes use like a self-directed IRA, self-directed pension plan. Those are good entities for holding assets, not for running a business, but for holding assets.